we go to YouTube and see if it's working?
Oh, it's gotten there. Done. Redirecting you to YouTube. And we're good. And it's on mute. There we go. Awesome.
Oh my God, we're live.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Triple T. This is Talk Time with TJ, and I am your host this evening, not TJ. My name is Lenora, and we have a lot to cover tonight, so I'm super, super excited. Thanks, Elijah, for making your camera come on. I appreciate it. And we have a few more people coming in just a moment. So we are going to start. There we go. Hi, Aaron. So we're going to start. So Talk Time with TJ. He is a clinical hypnotist. If you are familiar with his channel, definitely, I think you might have seen a couple of them. There's Francine. You might have seen a couple of episodes. He's a clinical hypnotist among the many talents that he has. And I am the substitute for this evening. My name, like I said, is Lenora. I know I said it twice now. It's fine. And I, by trade, am a speech language pathologist turned hypnotist turned absolute lover of all things that help people get better. So without further ado, we have lots to cover. And thanks for everybody for turning your camera on. If I miss anything, please don't hesitate to interject. And by all means, I always have questions. So if you guys have questions, absolutely jump in at any point. You are free to talk about whatever your heart desires. I know, right? So I now have such great friends. Okay, so what cool things happened to anybody this week? Anybody have anything cool to report? What do you got? Go for it. Yeah, go for it, Francine. I saw Elijah nodding his head.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I had a kind of different session with Fran over the last fortnight because I wasn't here last week. It was mind blowing. I thought, nah, this is not working. Nah, this is not working. No, this is not working.
But it went really well. You had a great time?
Yeah, it was fun. It was really a lot of fun. Awesome. And I'm way more relaxed, which is really good. I'm normally stressful. Yeah, it's been a great one.
That's exciting.
I feel like it shifted quite a big thing.
It shifted a big thing. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
When did you guys meet? How long ago?
I'm not sure if it was, I think it was Friday.
Nice. Well,
yeah.
I have no doubt that it's just going to keep getting better and better and better. That's super exciting. Awesome. Hopefully Fran will be on in a little bit. We'll see. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
Were you going to pop on, Elijah? I see the wheels.
Well, okay, so people here who've been watching Triple T don't know this, but everyone else who's actually here, like the four of you, all do know that I have been struggling for a little while with some mental health issues. And yeah, it's been really hard. It's been really hard. It was really whatever. Anyway, I had a friend of mine reach out and share some information with me and share a meditation recording with me. And I kind of tried it out. I was like very skeptical, but it was amazing, dude. Like, holy moly. I was like super emotional, like with the negative side of stuff that was coming up. And then I was super emotional with the positive gratitude of the good stuff going in. And I was sitting there like sweating a bucket. Like, let's imagine like a 45-minute meditation and you're just sweating a bucket afterwards and shaking, and like it was just nuts. So the last 2 days or so, I've been really excited and really like, hey, I'm gonna fix my life, and yeah, I've got this, kind of caught the second wind. So Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say like it's like, ooh, snap your fingers and it's done. But we are definitely on the correct path, more so than I have been for like 3 months or something. So it's exciting. It's exciting. Yeah.
That is so exciting. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations, Elijah. It's so interesting that you made that point, because actually that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight. I was having an awesome conversation via Telegram, thanks to one of my awesome friends here. And it came up in another group that us who people like to help other people, we want to help other people. We're just instinctively guided to it. And we learn all of these skills, and we learn hypnosis and how to release energy and meditation. And we continue to build on these skills that we have. And then what can sometimes feel like, well, great, I have all these skills now. I can't help myself quite yet. And I'm having some trouble doing that. And I wanted to talk about that because that was something that I really went through personally, where I learned all these skills because I felt like I needed to help myself and I couldn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't know who to go to about it. And I certainly wasn't about to go to my family or friends. So naturally, I turned to YouTube and found a slew of information, which was great. And some people here do know, some people don't know. So for the background story, I struggled for well over a decade with a type of eating disorder and really not caring for my body, really not liking my body, short of hating it. And in every attempt to help myself, I went in great search for answers. And I feel like a lot of people who do the work that we do have gone in search for answers, of which I would like to also point out that the self-help community should be called Help Yourself. It should be like, welcome like a smorgasbord, a buffet, try this, enjoy that. Maybe you like this, maybe you like that. And I feel like it gets such a negative connotation. And that just breaks my heart because it's looked down upon when really it should be celebrated. It should be applauded and everybody can offer their insight because everybody has their own personal story. And that from learning all that stuff, I learned about emotional freedom technique, which is EFT. I learned about EMDR. I learned about neurolinguistic programming and all these different types of ways to help yourself and to help other people. But it felt like I had a million pieces and I didn't know how to get them together. And when I would take maybe one step forward, two steps back, or two steps forward, one step back. And I wasn't really making progress. And I was determined to find any way that I could to help myself. And it wasn't until I had the dentist drilling into my head for my second false tooth that it really dawned on me that I needed to call in some other people. I needed to get some other help involved, and I couldn't do this alone. And that's when I started to look into finding coaches, finding mentors, finding other people that could really help guide me where I was. And the great thing that I learned now looking back was my naive self thought that this could, over decade long issue, could take care of itself in like 1 or 2 visits and then I would be fine. That wasn't the case. And I found that I really needed to keep going, and I would work with different coaches and they would bring out different things. And I learned in time to really listen to my intuition. I learned in time to really trust myself, saying, okay, go this way. Nope, let's pivot. Let's go this way. And I think that's something that should really be celebrated in our group, because it's important for us to be able to help each other, but also to be vulnerable enough that we want our clients, we want the people that we want to help to be vulnerable, to let us help them, but we need to also be willing to help ourselves, but also let other people help us and really keep pushing through, because it can be really hard and it can be really dark for a really long time. And we all can put on a smile and show up as our bright, rosy self. And nobody had any clue that you were the night before crying on the floor for 2 hours because things felt like they were collapsing, and we just tend to hide it. So I think that is something to really be addressed. The importance of change work, the importance of finding those connections and the first coach, if you ever go to a coach or if you ever go to somebody, the first one you go to might not be the one that you work with for the rest of your life. I've worked with a variety of people and it's only helped me more. And I don't look at it as they couldn't fix me. They couldn't fix me. They couldn't fix me. I looked at it as they were able to help me. They were able to help me. They were able to help me. And the more I let people help me, the more I've been able to help other people along the way, which is something that is just, I feel really, really passionate about it. I know a lot of people, when they talk to me on the side, they're like, you really mean this. And I'm like, yes, I do. It's so important. So what are your thoughts on this, guys? Have you experienced this? Have you encouraged other people to go work with other people? And how's it going? Okay.
Should I go first?
It's up to you.
If we're talking just hypnosis, or well, anything
Hypnosis,
really,
help
hypnosis,
at all.
talk therapy, like any kind of way. Out of all the ways that I've learned, like I've learned a few ways, like Reiki and hypnosis and NLP and like stuff, right? So self-hypnosis is never going to be as effective as like having someone else guide you. It's just never going to be the case, because you can't hide your own thoughts from yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like inside, whichever part of you is keeping you stuck wherever you are, it knows what you're trying to do when you're trying to self-hypnotize yourself to fix your own problem. And so it's going to find a way to kind of, and you sometimes need that other person who you can't anticipate what they're going to say, where they're going to go with their questions, or how they're going to put a frame around something, or how they're going to reinterpret something that you said and kind of twist it around and make you think. And I just think it's super valuable to work with other people. This, like, for things like building habits, or like, breaking an old habit or building a new habit, or just simple sort of things, I think absolutely you can do self-hypnosis, no problem. And just like improving your overall level of positivity and kind of being more, doing more gratitude stuff, and, all that kind of stuff, and general kind of, I would call it like, for maintenance, right? For maintenance and marginal improvement over time. It's like let's say, you're already in shape and you can go to the gym and your exercises, and you can kind of marginally improve over time, but generally just maintain where you are, because you don't want to necessarily be ripped, but you're kind of happy with the way your body is, and you just kind of like, but if you're like out of shape, then you need a trainer, or you need a dietitian, or do you know what I'm saying? So like for maintenance, absolutely. And for like general kind of steady improvement over time, and in your attitudes and your beliefs and your behaviors, fine. But if you have like an actual issue or a problem, I highly recommend getting a second opinion other than your own, because, like, trust me, I am someone who has been trapped inside my own logic for like 2 decades, right? I've helped countless people, and still after 20 years struggling with my own thing. And let's not count the whole 20 years. Let's just say, okay, since you learned how to help people. So since I became a coach and a therapist, like that's been 7 years, right? So in 7 years, I've learned how to help people, and I've helped countless people, and continually, like, I'm not saying it was all in vain, like I've definitely improved, but even up until like a few months ago, I've been really struggling. And even up until like a couple of days ago, I was really down in the dumps. And it took for someone else to say something that made me think differently from the trap that I found myself in. Yeah. So my thing is, like, if it's a real issue, if it's just a general kind of, okay, I want to get up earlier in the morning, you can kind of just do affirmation and self-hypnosis for that kind of thing. I think you can do that. But if it's like well, you would know if it's something that bothers you every day, has bothered you every day. I think you should definitely talk to someone else about it.
That's such a great point. You made such beautiful points there. You're completely right. Your mind knows your own tricks, for sure. And the more that we know about how the mind works and the different techniques that we've learned, and all of us have gone to different seminars and stuff, the more we know, which is great. The more we know. And
he was listening the whole time too.
So true. So it's hard to help yourself on your own, especially if you have not done it before. If you're trying to self-teach these techniques, if you're trying to self-teach yourself through these really big emotional things, you're trying to, what they say, drive the car and be the passenger at the same time. And it's very, very difficult. In addition to that, I think you can't see your own blind spots. So the fact that you're like, oh, set the timer or set the clock to wake up earlier, say, the affirmation, I'll wake up earlier at such and such time. Great ones. Absolutely. Those are phenomenal things to do on your own. But for bigger things like, I don't feel worthy, I don't feel deserving. I've struggled with money for quite a bit. Thankfully, when I was going through the many issues that I had with eating, they were so layered. I used food for every emotion. That's a lot to try and think, A, it's going to be cleared up in 1 or 2 sessions, and B, that's all I thought, oh, I can just solve this because I was just naming it one thing, but there were like 40 other things that were connected to it. And I did not realize that. So we did have to go through the process of that journey, resolving those things that were open and running and really, really offering me a lot of frustration. Go ahead, Elijah.
I always say, just when I heard you say about if you're someone who's teaching yourself, like if you're like watching these videos and learning some techniques from someone online, or watching an online course and learning through distance learning yourself at home kind of thing, I'm going to tell you something that one of my teachers told me, and it's super important. Like, okay, so it came from David. If anyone's, Dr. David Snyder, or whoever it is, I just call him David still. I can't get over the whole Dr. David thing. I can't do it. But it came from Dr. David. Yeah, so I knew him from way before he was a doctor. So anyway, when you learn a new technique, don't throw it at the biggest, baddest thing in your life. Okay,
and not by yourself.
Couple reasons, okay, because it's going to fail, right? Because you have a fresh technique that you've just learned, right? And you feel all like, yeah, I learned this thing. I'm gonna destroy my problem now. But the thing is, you have no practice or expertise using the technique, or like. What if something doesn't go according to plan halfway through? You have to make an adjustment. Like, you know what I mean? You don't have any experience using the technique. So what you do is you like take the biggest, baddest thing in your life, and you get a piece of paper and you number 1 to 10 across the top, and you like make columns, right? And then you think about the biggest, baddest thing in your life, and you write that under the column under 10, right? And then you think about something that's about half as bad as that in your life, and you write that under column number 5. And you think again, what's about half as bad as that, and you write that somewhere between 2 or 3 in that column or that column, depending on where it belongs. And you keep going down until you find a list of really small stuff that's not even really stuff. It's not even really problems, but like maybe they're just a little bit annoying, that you could list under the number 1 column or the number 0.5 column. So you find things that are really low emotional intensity problems. Yeah, they don't even bother you that much, and you start using the technique on them. Now obviously the technique is going to work on them because they're hardly even problems, right?
Yeah,
they're not even real problems. I mean, they are problems, but they're so weak in intensity, they hardly bother you. They're just like a 1 on a 1 to 10 scale, right? Yeah. So the technique's going to work there, and you just one by one just knock out everything on the number 1 scale. And then you move to the number 2 scale and you just knock out everything on the number 2 scale. And what you're doing secretly is you're building a history of success with the technique, right? And you're teaching your unconscious mind how to do the technique. And the magical thing is that by the time you get to 6s and 7s and 8s, you won't even have to. By the time you think of the problem, your unconscious mind's going to be like, oh, I know how to do that. We've done it hundreds of times before, and it's going to just solve the problem for you.
Yeah.
Right? So it makes the number 10s and the 9s much easier to deal with. Okay. You just start with the big stuff and you build a history of success with the easy stuff. And the thing is, if you work on things that are 1 out of 10, right? That is 1 degree of difficulty harder than what you were doing before, which was nothing. Okay. And let's say you solved everything that was a 1 out of 10. Now you move to a 2 out of 10, which technically is twice as hard, but from your perspective, it's still only 1 degree of difficulty harder than what you were just dealing with. And then when you move to 3 out of 10, it's just, again, just 1 degree of, so you're just going, it's like gradually adding weights in the gym when the old weight becomes easy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's not, you feel like it's not working anymore because it's too easy for you. So be warned, like if you're learning something remotely, because I did it. I learned David's spinning technique on YouTube, and I went and I was okay, let's go. And it didn't work.
Yeah. For anybody I was going to say, for anybody who's wondering what the techniques are, the ones that we're specifically talking about are neurolinguistic programming type techniques, spinning techniques, hypnosis techniques, and they're by Dr. David Snyder on YouTube. He has several videos posted, not nearly as many as he did back in like 2015. I think he's thinned him out a smidge, but what Elijah was talking about was very specifically bucket listing. And you're completely right. You have no catalog. You have no filing cabinet in your brain that says, oh, we've done this before. If you're throwing this first technique at it, when you're giving and you're going after something that's a 10. And I completely did the same exact thing that Elijah did. I tried it online. I know Francine did it online. Also, Aaron, I'm not sure about you. And that's great, but really take Elijah's advice. Bucket list it. Don't start at a 10. And the reason we're all saying this is because we have personal experience of being that person that totally tried to start it at like an 8 or a 9 or a 10 and send this really different technique to this very ugly problem and didn't have the ability to really manage it. I think also going to really submerge yourself in, if you feel like these approaches are for you, connect with a coach, connect with a mentor, connect with somebody, because it's so much easier once you have somebody who can guide you through. You can be the passenger and you really start to get a feel for things and how it should, it's not even should, how it feels for you. What are you going? You might break out into a sweat. You might yawn a lot. You might burp a lot. You might cry. These are all very, very common when you're experiencing emotional release or somatic release, that your body is literally shedding what it no longer needs. So that's why you're having these processes. But absolutely match up with somebody if you feel like this is a great fit for you. Anybody who's on this channel, you can reach out to TJ as well through this channel. Everybody, I think almost everybody offers a free consultation. But really, even if you want to ask questions, definitely ask questions, because you never know what you don't know. And I think that is wildly true for everything in the world. You don't know what you don't know, and you have no idea if the person that you connect with will be the right person, or they might not be the right person. You have no idea what you might experience. You're just having this perception of what this experience might be without actually having it take place. Be all in. If you really want to help yourself, be all in and go with people who are wanting to offer this care, wanting to offer this service and help, because we know personally, I can tell you how powerful and epically, amazingly my life has completely transformed. I can actually think about something other than food. This is a delightful experience for me, given how long my brain was dominated by food and how much it controlled my entire day. So if you feel like you're having something really overwhelm you, reach out to somebody, see if it's a fit for you. We're more than happy to ask you tons and tons of questions. And that being said, I didn't know if anybody had a question because I know it was jumping in there. But no questions? No, we're good. All right, awesome. Don't worry, I got plenty. I got plenty to talk about. One thing that I also really thought about was, so this, going through this, whether you want to call it healing, whether you want to call it resolving these emotional difficulties that you're having, whatever they may be. They might have been an eating disorder. They might have been your parents fighting, or a bad divorce, or a bad breakup, or anxiety from who knows where. And you might have been on stage at 7 years old and it's spiraled ever since. Whatever overwhelming thing that you're experiencing, even if it's not overwhelming, whatever you're experiencing, there's a way to really work through it. And it's so important to work through it because you're with you the rest of your life. The rest of your life. This is really about self-love and self-care and learning what that means. So this is something that really threw me for a loop. I heard Dr. Wayne Dyer talk about self-love years ago, and I was like, what is he talking about? It was so foreign to me that when I first heard it, my first thought was, what is he talking about? My second thought was, I don't love myself. And I didn't think that there was anything wrong with that thought process. Going through what I went through and on my journey, I had really learned what self-love is for me, what self-care is for me. Mine is going to be different than Aaron's, is going to be different than Francine's and Elijah's and whoever else is listening and on our call. It's going to be different for everybody. So to really start to explore, what does that look like for you? Start asking questions. Do you love yourself? If not, okay, no problem. Where are you? And where do you want to go? Really, I absolutely love journaling. I think you can probably tell there's like 3 journals here and the bottom one is a calendar. So I absolutely love writing stuff down, not to reread it, but because that seems to be the best way for me to get my thoughts out there, to really start to explore what's running through my head. And the self-care is definitely more not buying a smelly good candle and a bubble bath. That's not self-care for me. That's what the media would like me to do. Here's your nice candle. But that's not what self-care looks like for me. And really starting to tune in, how am I feeling? How do I want to feel? And really starting to raise your awareness. I think that's the biggest, most powerful thing that you can do, is continue to raise your awareness about where you are and what you want, because in that you can start to move the needle on where you want to go and how you want to resolve things. So that to me is wildly important. I'm also really about functionality. I like, as a speech therapist, we have to write like, how is this functional all day long? And I find that the more techniques I learn and the more tools that I learn help me take better care of myself. And yes, waking up at a certain time and doing certain things, even if I'm not in the mood, that to me is self-care, because I'm disciplined and I'm committed to doing the things that I know are for my wellness in the long run, or are for my good in the long run. So waking up at a certain time, how do I want to wake up? How do you want to wake up? What's the intention that you're setting for that day? And notice what you're doing. Okay, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to work out, or I'm going to wake up and get dressed and go to work. Where's your mind? What's the intention? And if you're getting caught in a conversation, notice how you're feeling. The conversation maybe that took place, or the conversation that you're not good enough. And where are your thoughts? That kind of awareness, it can be on autopilot. If you're not, the autopilot being things like, thinking about past conversations, or not thinking kindly about yourself. those things can be on autopilot. So to raise your awareness, notice how you're feeling. That's the best thing to notice. If you're feeling kind of icky and you're not sure why, where are your thoughts? What were you just thinking about it? Especially if you were feeling really good, and then within 10 minutes you're on a slope and you're like, why am I feeling like this? And it does feel a little bit overwhelming at first when you start to really raise your awareness. But I think that's the best way to live an intentional life. Focus on where you are emotionally. Focus on where your thoughts are. Write them down. And if you're able to do, like I know Elijah had mentioned, some self-hypnosis. If you're able to pause your day and take that moment of self-care, of whether it be a meditation or quick 20-minute nap or a walk outside, those are self-care too. Taking notice and really giving yourself the pause and the respect that says, okay, I have a lot going on, but I need to step away because it's just not going to be in a good place, in a good moment. So thanks, Erin. And learning what works for you, because what works for one person might not work for you. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I did for the longest time. I really tried to, and I know for sure I've mentioned this to Elijah. I wanted to sit down for 30 minutes or 20 minutes every morning and have this really beautiful meditation practice. And in my conversation with him, he was like, well, you're kind of doing that, because I was thinking and I was having an intentional workout while I was doing something else. So intentional as in like I knew where my thoughts were, multitasking because I was also on the stepper at the time. And he had pointed out, which is why we love to talk to each other, because I couldn't see that. I had no idea. And he pointed out my blind spot. And that was a great thing, because then you're thinking it needs to be this pretty meditation right here and it has to look like this. And it just wasn't clicking for me. And he's like, well, you found a way to do it yourself. That's an amazing point. Thank you for that reframe. That made it so much better. That made it so much easier. And I was then able to not beat myself up because I couldn't get into this lovely little beautiful meditation practice that would take place in the morning, of which it's the sitting one still doesn't happen, but the other good ones are happening. So that's great. Also, really setting the intention of, I do this all the time when I go to sleep, all the time when I can remember to do this. It's like 5 nights out of 7. How do I want to sleep? I want to have a really great sleep. I want to have a restful sleep. And I will tell my body, you have all the time in the world to take as much time as you need to get all the rest that you need. And I will say that, and say whatever comes to you, whatever you feel inspired to. And I take my clock in my mind and I push it way out there and I put the number on there. And each time I do, when I really focus on committing to that, sorry, I'm hiccuping. When I focus on committing to that thought and feeling it, I have a great sleep every single night. You'd think I'd remember to do this right now. I think sometimes I take it for granted. And then I'm like, oh, that's right. That's why I slept terribly. I didn't do that. Set your intention. So when you do that at night, how do you want to wake up in the morning? Set the intention. I want to wake up feeling really energized. I want to go into my day feeling good. Set that intention. Take those pauses, especially when you're going from things like work to home or home to work or transitioning around and doing the other activity. Take that pause and intentionally notice where you are and how you want to feel moving forward. It really makes a huge, huge difference in your own self-care, in your own self-discipline, in your own self-love, and in your own self-talk. And it's huge, absolutely huge. Does anybody have any questions? I know I was talking quite a bit.
I don't have questions, but I might as well talk while I've got the chance, right? Because there's so many different points, and I keep thinking, yeah, I could add to that, but
That's awesome.
But then they go. The train is all the way down there, and we're on a different carriage. But yeah, what you're saying, because I try to see the spots around what you're saying as well that are interesting, and what you were just describing. Like that's what that comes back to what you were saying before about why you can't work on yourself. That whole thing of setting an intention before you go to sleep, that's what self-hypnosis is, and that's the form it should take. Whereas if you were in bed and you were lying there and you were thinking, okay, so I'm going to get up and I'm going to feel great tomorrow, I'm going to feel really good, after an hour of that, you still haven't fallen asleep, and now you're getting into this weird thing. And that's the equivalent of trying to do a hypnosis session on yourself and kind of going, okay, I'm walking down the thing, and here's a chest on the beach, and there's a message inside. The point
Completely.
is to stop doing that, stop controlling it, put it aside, but to do it in the way that you said, and set an intention, and then let that intention run without managing it and guiding it. And to go back to Elijah's point, that's the really hard thing to do. And if you try to do that too soon, then you would think, well, I can't do this, or it doesn't work, or it's always going to have some result. It's always going to work, but it might not generate the result that you want because you're taking in a whole bunch of, I was going to use a word that we shouldn't say on YouTube, cruft. You're taking in a whole bunch of cruft and crud that
I didn't mean that it can't be done. What I mean is it's definitely just suboptimal,
Yes, and it's suboptimal as well for all the reasons you're saying, and I know this has been said, but the metaphor that I had in my head was, it's like you're trying to focus a camera lens, but like the lens is fogged, or one of the elements inside is distorted or out of alignment. So even if you get it physically to the point where it should and is in focus, the image still isn't correct, and so you keep churning and trying to find this sharp image, but because of the nature of the lens of your head, it's never quite going to be right. And that you were talking about before about setting an alarm, even that it works in weird ways where you'll go, okay, I'm going to set an alarm for 2 o'clock, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this thing, but because of the distortion of the lens in your head, it'll choose the number 2 o'clock because it knows that's actually a little later than it needs to be. You actually need to be up at 1:30 or something like that. And so you even though you're carrying out this thing that is kind of perfectly to plan, it can still not be right because there was a distortion involved in why you chose the number 2 in the first place. And so that's another thing why working on yourself can be so tricky, that you're what you think you should be focusing on isn't even the right thing because it's misfocused and distorted.
Those are such great points, Aaron. I love that you pointed out, you're especially, so stay control really quickly. If you're thinking, I want to wake up and have a great workout and I want to feel this way, or whatever you're thinking about, I want to feel this way, be careful because you can go really into it and start to generate that feeling. And if you're lying in bed thinking about how you want to feel on a run, you're going to start tripping the system, and it's going to start amping up, thinking you're ready to go for the run right now, even though you're like, okay, now I have 5 hours of sleep. Okay, now I have 4.5 available to go to sleep. Now I have 3 hours available to go to sleep. So be careful when you're setting that up. So I'll get to stay control in a second. And there was also then to both points so far, especially if you're setting the intention to wake up and have a workout, how does it feel? Because if you think that you have to wake up to work out to lose weight rather than wake up to work out to feel good, you're like Aaron made that beautiful metaphor about the camera lens. You're going to have this shifting, and it's not going to be that clear alignment. And again, your own tricks, because if you're thinking, I have to do that because I have to lose weight, and it's a really shitty feeling coming up like I've had in the past, you'll find ways to avoid it like the plague, really, truly. And it's a terrible thing because then you're going to actually feel even worse So make that really strong connection of set the intention. What do I want to do? How do you want to feel? What's the intention that you want to bring to that? And if you're thinking, you know what, I simply want to wake up and write in a journal because I have 5 whole minutes and that's how I want to spend my 5 whole minutes. That's great. Minor things. If you're associating any good feeling with it, you're much more likely to carry them out. If you're associating it with a have to, or a need to, or a should, it's not going to be nearly as enjoyable. And you will also work really hard to avoid it. I didn't know if anybody had a question. Yeah, Francine. Well, then you're not.
I don't really have a question. I was just thinking on how you said that sometimes you need different therapists, and because it's like different kind of, I don't know, healing.
Mm-hmm.
I started with, like I just said, I started with Reiki a couple of decades ago. And then I did the specialized kinesiology course. I did the Touch for Health. I did the EFT. I did the faster EFT. As a background, I'm a social worker. So I did psychology. And after the brain injury, I went to see therapists. And I kind of could see where they were going. So I was like 5 steps ahead. And I think that's when you do self-healing as well. You know where you're going. You kind of know. So you kind of prepared for it. So, and it didn't work. Of course, I didn't do any progress. It was only when I started meeting, when I did David's course, that the things were different. It was a totally different approach from what I was taught in psychology, or it was some of the very little bits were the same, but yeah, the techniques were just, like the spinning and all of that was so different. So yeah, it's important to do self-hypnosis because it will help us to carry on making little steps in between the sessions. But it's also important to have someone where you can't see where they're going. Otherwise, you're like 5 steps ahead, like I used to be, and then it doesn't, and then you wonder why it doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal points, Francine. Absolutely, about knowing of learning different things, because you're just more educated and more have more information about that, which is great. How you mentioned about Reiki and learning EFT, definitely did that. I didn't learn Reiki, I did learn EFT, but also once you start to get introduced to something completely new, that's also great, because then you're not like, I know where this is going, and you don't have any memory bank of the time that it didn't work, or like, oh, they didn't do it this way, I would have done it this way, and you're not really judging it over here. So phenomenal points. I love that. That was so great. And I also love that you mentioned about the self-hypnosis. So completely, there is, and for me at least, I think there is something to be said about working with other people beyond just one person. Try different things. See if other people are able to help take you further. There was one time I was on a call with a coach, and I met them 3 or 4 times. And on the 4th time it was a great session, and I hung up knowing that was the last time that I was going to talk with them, and that was as far as they were going to be able to go. And that was okay. They helped me, I helped them. It was a great experience. That they never asked, like, why not? And I didn't offer it because I really didn't think it was necessary, because that's where we both were at the time, saying like, thank you for your help. Thank you for your guidance. I'm good here. So we're going to now go each of our own way. I was thinking about canoes. I know TJ's used that canoe analogy before, but just trying different things. And also you might have a completely different rapport, male versus female, female and female, male and male. People are going to bring out different aspects of you and different parts that need to be heard and resolved. One thing about resolving, or being heard, so parts. I know sometimes we talk about parts where you're like, oh, I feel like it's this younger part, or I feel like it's this other part, or this foreign part. And for me, I have to literally give them a voice. And I think there is something to be said about the energetic component of letting that part speak and have it's a time to say its piece so that it can be at peace. And whether that part has a conversation in my head, on a piece of paper, out loud, it wants to be heard, and there's a dialogue that's going back and forth, and it sounds a little strange to somebody who's not very familiar with this, but it's really not strange at all, and it makes perfect sense. And then when you have that peace and you have that resolve, you're like, it's a completely different response, and your nervous system feels it completely. It's a lighter feeling, it's a calmer feeling, it's a relaxing feeling. It's nothing scary. And the people that you work with, if you do decide, to anybody out there, if you decide to work with somebody, these are things that they'll be able to tell you about. And you'll also be able to ask, is this normal? Should I feel this way? I feel like, meditation, sometimes nobody can't really describe to you how it's going to feel for you because they're not in your body. It's just something you have to really jump in, be all in, experience it, go for it yourself, and see where it goes from there. And ask questions, always ask questions. We all love to talk. Usually anybody you meet in this realm will have a lovely time talking with. Anybody else have any questions, any things to add? No, we're good right now.
I think what Francine's saying, it is important to do self-hypnosis.
Oh,
it is, because even if you don't, it's going to happen anyway. Like, self-hypnosis is not happening. It's happening. Whether you realize it or not. Everything you watch on TV or Netflix or YouTube, or every conversation you have with anyone else, or every teacher you've ever had, or every book you ever read, like, the self-hypnosis is happening. Every time you interpret and reinterpret and make meaning inside your mind about something, like, you are programming yourself all the time, whether you know it or not. So you might as well choose a direction and program it in that direction, rather than just let it happen randomly and by default.
Completely. And Francine also did raise a really great point also about the hypnosis between sessions, whether it's a hypnosis, whether it's a meditation, whether it's you now feel comfortable enough to do certain techniques on your own, where somebody might not be available for a one-on-one session at 3 p.m. when you might be having a really difficult time. It depends. Or you're able to say, you know what, I just really need to take time for myself. I know what's going on. I need to go over here and be by myself. Taking that time is something that will also really help you build that trust with yourself and build that resilience of that determination, and also that catalog and memory bank of, hey, I can take care of myself. Hey, I am doing okay. Things are getting better. And if they're not better right now, I know what to do. And you don't feel nearly as lost. And then you can actually look behind your timeline and go, wow, I've come really far. And like Elijah had said, even though it was one step at a time, you can now look back and see your zeros and your ones and your twos that you're able to manage at an 8, because you have this consistent catalog of your own independence, your own self-care, your own self-love, your own discipline of helping you feel how you want to feel, show up how you want to show up, and not be completely run over by your emotions all day, every day. Go for it, Francine.
You were talking about parts therapy, where you talk to that particular parts.
You're taking that course, right?
Well, I'm planning to do it. I just had a bit of setbacks. I'm planning to do the course. I had quite a few sessions with one gentleman, and he does EMDR and internal family systems. It's mind-blowing. Because if you have those conversations with yourself, sorry, Elijah, if you're having this conversation with yourself, it brings you back to, if you're not coping, it brings you back to a coping stage quite quickly. So when you're having these big blowouts, it kind of will settle much quicker than if you don't have those conversations, which is kind of interesting.
That was a really great point, Francine. I'm sorry to hear you're having setbacks, but I hope it works out for you.
Oh, life throws you curveballs.
All the time.
Without the troughs, how would you recognize the peaks?
Oh.
Well, the thing is that my peaks compared to my lows used to be right down there. My peaks are here now. And then, but when you come to here, it just feels like you're back down there in some ways, but you're not. Do you know what I mean? It's because it's such a big difference again that it feels terrible, even if your good days are much, much further up.
I completely hear you on that, Francine.
You just have ridiculously high standards, don't you?
Yeah.
In the best ways.
However, pretending that I'm on the roller coaster actually helps, because then you just go down quicker, but you come back up much faster.
Can you explain that again for the people who are listening to you for the first time?
When I'm having a bad time, I pretend that I'm on the roller coaster. So I kind of sit in it and feel it as I go down, because if you sit in it and you feel it, you go down much faster. But once you're much faster with the momentum, you're going down and feeling and being in it and being with it, and then you just come up much. So it's like whoosh.
She's so excited for the downhill because she knows there's light and then she'll go back uphill soon.
Yeah, because wow, I'm going down. That means that I'll come back much higher up.
I love that. That's awesome. That was such a great point when Francine had said, because I agree. I used to feel really, really low. And now when I feel low, I much prefer to feel much higher. But I have a slew of tools and techniques that I will use to help bring myself back up. Especially raising your awareness of, where are my thoughts right now? What am I thinking? And as uncomfortable as that might be, absolutely, I would never say it's not uncomfortable. And it pretty much flat out sucks sometimes. But it is what it is. What do I need to do for me? So when I'm in that moment, okay, what do I need to do? How quickly can I resolve this so that I can feel better? How much attention does this need right now? Is it something silly like that I can leave at work and I really don't need to stop and be all that annoyed by it, and I can move on and just let it go, and there it goes, and it's fine, back to good standings? Or is it something else that really needs a lot more of my attention, where I need to make a note in my phone and be able to deal with it at another time and really give it the dedication and the attention that I happen to need with it? But that's the level of awareness of, what is it? How important do I have to deal with it? Can this be managed at another time? And to really acknowledge that I will go back to it and continue on with my day. One thing that I absolutely love to do for setting up my day, because sometimes I don't wake up super bubbly and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. It doesn't happen all that often, but it's true. And one thing that I love to do is, how can I get super excited for the day? How can I get really pumped up? And I will sometimes have a full-on dance party during my workout. And that happens to be my workout, because that happens to be the best way that I can get into a better state at that time. Or there are other times where I'm thinking like, okay, I was awake in the middle of the night. Maybe this isn't the best day to wake up. And what do I need right now? You need to go back to sleep. And that's okay too. That's self-care too. Be okay with going back to sleep. Be okay with taking that pause. Be okay with stepping away. I don't know where we lost the permission to do this, but really be okay with it and give yourself the permission to go and do what you need to do, because that's self-care. And that is the beauty of being selfish. And yes, it is so important to be selfish, because I can't help other people if I'm really, really, really depleted. That's not going to be being my best self. That's not going to be helping anybody. That's not going to be kindness. That's going to be somebody who's really rude, really short with road rage. It's not who it's going to be for me.
Can it even be regarded as selfish in that case?
That is such a great, this is why we talk to people.
Think about it, right? Like if you put your focus and energy on improving yourself so that you're in a better place to help other people, is it selfish?
I'm loving this question.
As saying that's actually brave. It's very brave.
It's interesting because it could be. I always thought of selfish as, what was it? I think it was Lenora. I think it was you who said it to me, right? That selfish is only like real selfish is only real selfish if you're like willing to step on other people to get to where you want to go and put them down and kind of competitively kind of selfishly destroy others on your way to the top kind of thing. But if you're just like doing no harm to anyone, right, and even helping others along the way as you put and keep energy and focus on yourself improving, then how could that be selfish?
I love the reframe here, Elijah.
Right.
That's so good.
I used to have this t-shirt that says on it, "Do no harm," in massive letters. But then on the back it would say, "But take no shit." do no harm, but take no shit.
Aaron was trying so hard not to curse on YouTube. Elijah took care of it.
No, listen, right? You have to curse. Cursing is a good thing.
I follow you. I hear you. But
I love that. Here's the problem with political correctness.
Okay.
I'm going to go into it now. You've got me
Boy.
started.
All right.
Right? Okay.
We're on the second hour. Go
the
for it.
The more you tell people it's not okay to use a certain word and it's taboo to use a certain word, right? The less people will use that word because they think it's taboo and they don't want to be judged by society. And then when eventually someone says that word, they're going to be like, oh! And someone somewhere is going to get offended. Now, let's be real for a moment. If you get offended, what happens? Fucking nothing.
Like,
nothing happens when you're offended. It happens inside your own mind. Nothing changes in the outside world when you're offended.
That is true.
Okay. So if someone wants to be offended, let them be offended. Right? I'm offended by the fact that I can't use curse words and swear and say whatever language that I want, whenever I want, however I want, as often as I want, to anyone that I want. Yet, who's there looking after my needs and my being offended, right?
No.
And trying to stop me from being offended by saying, well, no, you should allow Elijah to speak whichever way he wants to. When I was a kid, like 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, the F word, right? If that one, right? That word, right? If it was in a movie, that movie was automatically an 18 certificate in the UK, just because of the language, right? Okay. By the time I was 18, they were saying the F word in 15 rated movies, and the word shit was appearing in 12 certificate movies, right? So two things I want to say. The more people use offensive words, the more we will dilute how offensive those words are, because they will become commonplace and then no one will be offended by them. And two, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Excellent points, Elijah. Francine.
Well, if you come to Australia, they, the C word, it's actually a compliment. So it depends. I
love Australians for that. I really do.
So
I'm going to say it now because this is TJ's YouTube channel, right? But I love that word. It's in Shakespeare and Chaucer. It's like the oldest swear word in the world. It's wonderful. But if you think about another word like MF, MF is a horrible word. You know, you won't see me. You might hear me saying the C word, but you won't hear me saying MF.
Really?
Dude, MF is a horrible word.
Language is very strange.
Let's break down the word MF for a minute.
Wait. Sorry, I wanted to hear. I wanted Francine. Sorry.
If you hear my son when his friends come over, it's C word, and they're really, and they're into it. It's kind of, yeah, I think only Australians can do that. It's kind of nice because it's just so much more relaxed about it, and it's not an offensive word. It just depends how you say it.
I feel like that's all of language.
And I think so beautiful because it's just so much more relaxed. I have a foul language, let's be honest.
You clean it up very here. I don't think I've ever heard you say anything.
Well, it's because I didn't need to. For me in English, because it's not my first language, I don't have the guilt that comes with swear words.
Okay.
This is, you will never hear me in French swearing, which is kind of interesting because it's got that connotation in my mind that it's bad.
Yeah.
Well, in English it hasn't, because I learned it as an adult.
I was gonna say, is it because of the age that you learned it? So I love language. I used to think I was language obsessed, and Brent Fromm reframed it for me, and he told me I was language sensitive, and I like that much better. But yeah, when it's in another language, it's especially not the language that you were born with, so you don't really have that deep connection to it, and you might not feel like a little kid swearing. You'll feel more like an adult swearing. Yeah.
I love hip hop. I have done. I got my first NWA cassette when I was like 12 or 11.
I love that it was a cassette.
I remember myself and my two cousins going into the record store and picking up the cassette and asking the guy at the counter if there was swear words in the songs in this cassette. And he was like, yeah. We're like, yeah, we'd like to buy it, please. And then we had to listen to it in headphones so that our parents wouldn't hear us listening to the rap music with all the swear words in it, right?
That's too funny.
Right. And I've loved hip hop and rap since about that age, sort of 10, 11. You know what I mean? I like that music. Okay. Now, if I'm listening to Dre or Jay or Kanye, or you know what I mean, there's a lot of the N-word being thrown around. Okay. And if I want to kind of sing along to a song that I really like, but I can't because I might offend someone who accidentally hears what I'm saying, I find that offensive. Like, why can't I get into my music? Right? Why can other people not understand that it's not the word? That is definitely not back PC. To what Francine was saying. It's not the word, it's the context within which the word is being used.
Yes.
Right?
But yeah, I would definitely go with the fact that it is very PC, politically incorrect.
That's what I'm saying. It's a little bit anyway.
What else do we want to talk about? Any other questions? I had one thing. So, but if anybody else want to jump in right now? Crickets.
No, I'm going to take a big swig.
Okay. Okay.
I'll go because I've been holding on to talking about the self-care that you're talking about for a while, and so I might as well dump it out. Because you sort of brought up the point just before we switched over to Francine. Because as you say, sometimes the best thing you can do is to just take the pressure off yourself and go, I'm just going to not solve this right now. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to, because, people, I would think for most of us, we probably got into learning this type of stuff because we had the big problem and we wanted to figure out how to solve our big problem for ourselves. And so by doing that, as Elijah says, you're always there's always chances coming up. You're always kind of programming yourself. And if you've got this focus on how do I solve this thing, you're reinforcing and recreating and enhancing the thing that you're trying to get rid of. And you work with so many clients or friends or whatever, and
right? Yeah,
and
that's actually really high level stuff. I almost swore again. It's actually really high level stuff. We're talking like
can't solve the problem with the same mind.
Just to like, am I clear in understanding? Right. Every time you say, "Oh, I haven't solved it yet," you're reaffirming that it's still a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a presupposition. It's like if you're on antidepressants, every time you take an antidepressant tablet, you're telling your kind of subconsciously, non-verbally telling your mind, "I'm depressed because I need this tablet."
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's kind of a insidious thing.
Yeah, especially because it's considered. Think of the name of it too, anti. Yeah, it's reaffirming it.
So, wait, let Aaron carry on.
Yeah.
He wasn't done.
Not sure what I was saying now, but
that you want to take a pause and to walk away. Yeah.
So we can get focused on that thing, and as we would do often in our question asking, we'd say, well, when you're focused on that, what are you not focused on? And there could be 95% amazing that you're not noticing because you're sitting in a room trying to solve this thing. You don't know that it was a nice sunny day outside with a crisp breeze because you were inside watching a video about language patterns so that you could do self-hypnosis and try and solve the big problem. But you work with so many clients or friends and they have a breakthrough and they just go, oh, I guess I could just not care about it. And that's the whole solution that they come up with is to not worry about it anymore. And just like, well, you could have done that before. And it's such a weird thing that it's always has been possible.
Yeah, but having been on the receiving end of that, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that you could have just done it before. It was something happened inside that kind of made it okay for you to say that.
It has to go that way.
Yeah.
It's the connection because you couldn't do it by yourself. You're bringing in somebody else.
It's to use my metaphor before in maybe a weird way. Instead of looking through the lens to see and seeing the solution, the lens itself sees the solution. So whatever you look through then is focused on that. It's nice. It goes this way instead of that way.
Yeah,
that was trancy, bro.
That was excellent. I feel like that. I can pull up quotes really easily. The one that Einstein said that you can't use the same mind to solve the problem that you use to create it. Same thing. Yeah. But
because it's non-linear. This is the thing, right? People try to use logic. People try to use logic to solve problems, but the problem wasn't created logically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And they're like, and the number of people I'm like, well, no, if I try and talk to them, they're like, well, no, all I have to do really is just become aware more and kind of take away the emotion and just think about it logically. And the more I can logically think, then I'll be fine. I'm like, dude, that's not how it works at all. You know what I mean? Because it's not linear. To this day, 2022, you could watch a weather forecast and it will be completely wrong the next day. Like
oh my God, that's so good.
Weather is a non-linear system, right? Okay. Our nervous system is a non-linear system as well, just like the weather. Okay. And you literally, coming back to the Einstein thing, you can't solve it that way.
That's such a great way of putting it.
Like
I've never heard the weather one.
Yeah, the weather is a non-linear system, right?
Yeah, I've never heard it said like that.
Yeah. So people, if we still, with all our instruments and all our technologies and all our everything, we still can't predict necessarily, like with 100% accuracy, I mean.
Yeah.
Right. Reliably with 100% accuracy, what the weather's going to be like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. Then how do you expect to logic your way out of a problem that's outside of your awareness.
Yeah, logically, that you did not really
Right.
come up with.
Exactly.
You just came up somehow in some way, shape, or form, and now we have it. Aaron, were you going to say something?
Yeah, because that reminded me, I've been talking to a friend about a lot of this stuff recently, and just about issues that he's been having as well. And hearing him talk about some stuff, I said to him along the same lines, like, I've heard enough people talking in ways that I recognize as that are an unconscious response to know that what you were talking about, because he was doing the same thing. He was like, I want to understand what's going on. And I've heard enough of that and seen enough of that to know that he can't understand it on a logical level, because the solution is not a logical thing. It's a metaphorical thing or an analogical thing, because that's how the unconscious mind thinks. So it's actually in a different language that can't sort of be even translated to a logical thing. So yeah, you can sit and you can think about as much as you want, but you can't actually understand it. Or if you're thinking to yourself, and you shouldn't do this, but if you're saying, why have I still got this problem? Your body or your unconscious mind.
That's a toxic question.
It is. But your mind and your body will answer that, but it won't always answer with a thought or something you can understand. It might go, oh, here's the answer, and it'll give you a feeling, and you'll go, well, now I'm just feeling terrible, and you'll get lost in that terrible feeling. But really, the terrible feeling was the answer to your question, and that's the thing you need to work on. But because you're looking for a sentence or a phrase or some sort of a logic level understanding of it, you're missing all the actual answers that you
can't see the forest for the trees.
Hi, Fran. Welcome. Oh, hi, Phil. Thank you. Yes.
Oh.
How are you, Fran?
I'm good. I'm just going to say I've been able to pass on the link to Phil. So Phil's joining us today, which is really cool.
Hi, Phil. When your audio gets connected. Fran, Francine was singing your praises earlier. She said she was feeling fantastic.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, so we were talking a little bit. You can go back through the replay, the quick synopsis. Jump in wherever you feel like you'd like to be talking tonight. That would be a nice wrap up. I don't know if Aaron, yeah, go for it.
Good, because one more part.
You're perfect.
So we get focused on solving the big problem, right? And I've seen it so many times in our circles where, because there's a thing that would be called professional development, right? Which would be keeping up with the latest technology and all that kind of thing. But I see this other thing that happens where it's like an overlearning syndrome. Like people are wanting to learn, like, what I need to learn just one other technique. So because they have a thing. It's either a thing of, if I just learn this one technique, then I'll be a good enough hypnotherapist, and I won't be a fraud, and I won't be just pretending like now I'll be good enough. Or it'll be, if I learn one more thing, then I'll be able to solve my own thing. And it comes back to that thing of, just take the pressure off. Because after I learned a lot of this stuff, I had a local, a New Zealand-based hypnotherapist who helped me out a lot before I even learned this, and just kind of fixing stuff. And I think we gravitate towards this because it's an alternative to talk therapy. And sometimes for a lot of us, I think talk therapy didn't really work. And, I would know from my experience that I would talk to, my counselor. I'd kind of go into the real world and I'd be all right for a while. And then something would happen and I'd kind of fall off the rails and I wouldn't know how to get back on them. And so I kind of gravitated towards this. And so I'm like, okay, well, this is good and this works. I want to solve my thing and I want to use this. But I got to a point where I was like, I just like to go to this hypnotherapist and not even work on anything. And I just want to talk about it. And so this is one big loop coming back around to saying, maybe sometimes just take the pressure off and have a conversation with someone who is maybe a professional, who can give you the perspective, and it's not even with a goal of this is about solving your thing. It's just to talk and to get it out, because that, I think we can sometimes forget that can actually just be useful as well.
I love that you pointed that out. That's so, so important, because I actually had written down to be flexible, to be open to wherever your path goes. So I know earlier I was talking about working with different people, just like that. Be okay with talking with somebody else, be okay with learning something else, be flexible in that approach that you just had said about talking it out with that person. And I also love the, I have to learn this, I have to learn that, I have to learn this. And we were in a group a couple months ago, and I think it was the hypnosis one and the Saturday one. And Elijah had said, it was the everybody joining, and Elijah had said, I learned from this person, you learned from that person. We probably are all talking about the same thing and can play in the same sandbox. And I thought that was such a beautiful thing, because it doesn't, Dr. David Snyder, what does he say? As long as you get the outcome. Did you get the outcome you wanted? That's what it's about. And that's what I absolutely loved when Elijah had pointed that out, because we can learn all these different things, which is great, because you might have one person who's very aware and needs a certain tweak another way, and that might help them. But you might also have somebody who's really, really emotional, and they might need something completely different. So I think it just helps us make us better. But I've had that feeling, absolutely, that I felt like I had to keep learning and learning and learning and learning, and then I wasn't good. And then I had that reframe, and I was like, wow, that's really powerful way of saying that and noticing it. And it wasn't that I wasn't good enough anymore. It was, oh, I can learn it if I want to, and I'm still doing a great job, even if I don't know everything under the sun. That was absolutely awesome, Aaron. Way to point that out. Thank you so much. I didn't know if anybody was talking up.
Another really kind of reminds me of another really advanced concept, which I'm a little hesitant to bring out here, because this is supposed to be like simple stuff, right? But this idea of
we're intrigued now.
Well, that's the whole point. The hypnosis is never not happening, right? How many of you would be interested in learning? No. Yeah, this idea of
did you see them, Elijah?
Not wanting anything in exchange for your effort, right? Because, like, if you're an artistic person and you start to draw some designs of some jeans or some shirts or something, that's cool, because you're drawing it out because you like fashion and you enjoy that kind of stuff, and that's cool. And if you decide to then make clothes out of the designs that you got, you get some cloth and you get some scissors and some string and some sewing machines, and you make a dress or a pair of jeans or something. That's cool, because it was something you were just messing around, and that's what you enjoy, and and it's a fine goal to make clothes because you like making clothes, right? And of course you should be paid for your work, so you can even sell the clothes if someone else sees them and say, oh, hey, that's cool, where did you get that? I say, oh, actually I made it. Oh, really? Right? But the moment, if you kind of fast forward this whole thing and you get to a point where it's like, oh, I'm making these clothes and I'm selling these clothes, and I've got this business that I'm running now, but if I get the material from the other supplier, I could cut my cost a little bit, and I could just, now you're no longer making clothes for the sake of making clothes. Now you're making clothes to make money.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you are wanting something in exchange for your effort, which is not where you started. Where you started was you were just putting your effort because that's what made you happy in that area, right? And so this is where the whole thing about real love is unconditional love kind of ties into it, right? When you do something and secretly want something in exchange for the thing that you do, even though you're not like, like you do someone a favor, or maybe I find this girl attractive, and so I do something for her, and then I do something else, and I'm secretly thinking I'm racking up points with this girl, you know what I mean? I'm going to ask her, and then it turns out that she's not interested, and I get upset. It's because the stuff that I was doing was not from a place of unconditional love, right? I wanted something in exchange for it. Okay. And so when you can, as Aaron said in his example, like when I can meet with another hypnotist and talk with them just for the sake of talking with them with no intention of trying to fix my problem, I'm more likely to get more value out of that, right? Than, oh, I'm going there so that he can help me to, like, I want to give him the information and tell him about my problem so that he can help. Like, I'm wanting something in exchange. Now, this kind of runs against traditional wisdom, which is like, obviously, you pay for service and you do this, you do that. And so it's not the easiest, it's easy enough to understand, like, because all of you understand what I just said, but it's very difficult to apply in real world situations because the whole world is kind of based around people exchanging money or other things for things. Mm-hmm. And so it's very hard for someone to kind of get into that mind frame of, okay, like the money, almost like if, let's say you were building a business, you're doing it because you enjoy, like, do you know why my classes got so popular back in 2020 and 2021? Because I had no intention of charging for them. I just wanted to get on Zoom and do hypnosis. And they became so popular. And people started asking, oh, how much are you going to charge for these classes? And how much are you going to do this? And how much are you going to do that? And then when I started thinking about all that stuff, that's when I had a little panic attack and just stopped doing them and took a break. And I was like, I'm not doing these classes anymore. It's too much pressure. And after about 3-4 months, I really missed them. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not going to swear again. You know what? Screw it. I'm not going to bother thinking about even like charging for them. I just want to meet up with people on Zoom again. And then we came back around in 2021 and they were even better because we were just busy having fun. And if there is any money to be made from that, it's going to follow almost as an afterthought, right? You just focus on doing what you enjoy. This is kind of the whole Abraham Hicks thing about follow your bliss, right? And the success will kill itself trying to catch up to you eventually once you become excellent at what you do.
That's beautifully said.
But you just do it for the sake of doing it, because real, like, love is the most powerful thing, but only when it's unconditional, because that's what real love is. Real love is unconditional. Okay. And if ever you want something in return for what you're doing, or you secretly, oh, I'll do this and maybe I'll win a favor back sometime in the future, that's not unconditional love. The place you're coming from is not a place of truly giving of yourself. And that's why it doesn't work when it doesn't.
You said that beautifully. You thought that was too much for here?
I don't think it's too much for here. I think it's
okay.
It's easy enough to understand intellectually, mm-hmm. but to put it into action in your life and live as if it's true viscerally day by day through your actions is very difficult to do. That's what I said by it. It's a very advanced thing.
Yes, very advanced. I completely agree. Definitely fun to set with an intention. See what I did there? Fran, did you have a question? I didn't know if your hand was going up or if you were writing it.
I was tending to head on another tangent, so I'll just let this bit continue and.
No, I think we're good. I said all I had.
Okay.
So. No, right, I was going to piggyback, but I was waiting for you.
You go piggyback, and then I'll come up with mine.
I was waiting for Fran to finish his sentence before I started to talk. Yes, Elijah, I know this isn't what you're talking about, But I thought it was at first, and I've got the ghost of TJ hanging around, and so I wanted to reply. I'm gonna inject what I think he would say, because Lenora, I think I mentioned it in our little chats, similar to what Elijah was saying, that as well as that hang up of, if I just learn this technique, then now I'll be a good enough hypnotist, there's another thing that hangs around with people doing therapy stuff, the sense of, I don't deserve to be paid for this, or for some reason what I'm doing isn't something that I should get money in return for. Like maybe it's an altruism, or if I really care, then I shouldn't be getting money for it. It's somehow dirty in people's heads. So much of the time I hear, like in this group and in the other group that we do, the Australian group, there's maybe one person, I think, that kind of does full-time paid hypnotherapy work, and the rest of it is sort of friends helping friends and altruism and all that kind of thing. And I think that's kind of telling. I think there's definitely a hang up there. So I know this wasn't what you were saying, Elijah, but the ghost, and I've got it a little bit as well. So I can't say this is coming from me, and that's why I'm saying it's coming from, hopefully, from TJ. I think TJ would say, charge people for your work. If you're doing something that they are getting value from, then allow them to kind of give that back. And also, bigger picture, as I think Elijah's probably thinking, when people pay for something, there is now leverage. They've invested something of themselves, and so now they want it even more, and they're more invested in the process. So it's good for you because you're making a living. It's good for them because they're invested and they're going to get what they want. So there's altruism in there somewhere, even if it's dirty in your heads.
That was so beautifully said, Erin. Go for it.
And also, you've paid a lot to know what you've learned. So how are you actually going to recoup that? You've brought this energy into the world by paying your good money for it. Don't you actually deserve to be?
How do you know my money was good? Maybe it was dirty money.
Well, there you go.
Of course he would say that. You were saying, Fran? Now that Elijah came over and pushed over the cart.
Yeah, well, I mean, doing things because you love it is fabulous. But yeah, if you want somebody to be invested in it, they need to make some contribution. And also there's the other aspect of, if you don't allow people to contribute, you're denying them the opportunity of contributing. So, there's all these different aspects of it as well.
I think it's definitely layered. Yeah.
And, you're building an obligation with that person if you're giving and giving and giving. And sometimes people want to give back. And being a control freak, which I hadn't realized until very recently, I find it really hard to receive. I'm all very good at giving, but receiving is really hard because I don't know if I want it. That's another thing. I don't know whether I want what you're trying to repay me. At least if it's money, you know what you're getting, you know what the exchange is. But the topic.
Sorry, Fran, just to jump in, because that's a good point, because I think it sometimes makes people uncomfortable. Like for us, because we share, there's like a reciprocation of the skills, and so we both sort of get something. And so I think we go into working with people that don't have it, where we're like, just let me help you, I'll do it, it's fine. But then becomes this imbalance, and I think people actually become uncomfortable of, I'm getting all this stuff for free, and whilst on the surface that should sound really good, I think it can actually make them uncomfortable. So allowing them to pay.
And if you don't offer someone, like let's say a friend of mine is struggling with something, and I know how to help, or I know enough to have a very decent chance of helping them, right? And I don't offer them that help, right? Then would they even ask me for help, knowing that when they do, I'm going to say, okay, but it's going to cost you this? Is it not like, I understand what you're saying, right? You should definitely be paid for your work. And yes, you should definitely, be rewarded for, but if I see someone who I know who is struggling with something, maybe I don't even know them that well. Maybe it's like a friend of a friend, right? Because obviously we know the pitfalls of working with people who are too close as well, right? So let's say it's like a friend of a friend. It's an appropriate amount of distance in how much we know each other that I could help them successfully, and there's a good chance because of my trainings and my experience and my skill level and all that I could actually help them through it. If I don't offer it to them and they don't know that I'm willing to help them, would they necessarily but then I suppose it's not really for me to say, is it? That's for their decision, not mine. Sorry, I answered my own question.
I love that.
And
That's
I was
awesome.
going to say, by the way, we've found Elijah's criterion values conundrum.
Here's the thing, right? For me, I just want to hug everyone who's crying inside. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to help all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
but there's the other end of
it was
the spectrum.
one of the hardest things. Sorry, friend, I'll shut up in just a second, right? But one of the hardest things I ever heard, like in my ears, was when my uncle looked at me and said, "You can't save them all, and nor should you be expected to." Right? And it was one of the hard. I in that moment I hated him because I really wanted to help everyone, and I really thought I could help everyone. And accepting that I can't help everyone, not because I'm not good enough to help everyone, because the GOAT, let's be serious, right? Not that I couldn't help everyone, but maybe they're not ready for help, or maybe they're not maybe they don't want me to be the one who helps them, or maybe they just, that's very hard for me as an individual. I can tell you now, it's very hard for me to see someone struggling with something that I know I could help them. You know what I mean? Like if you think, like, even, I don't know if there are any Linkin Park fans in the house, right? But Chester, the lead singer from Linkin Park, committed suicide because of depression. And I know I could have helped him. And it made me really sad.
It's the other end of the spectrum as well, though, that when people, you help them and they keep coming back and keep asking for more and more, they're not prepared to put in the investment in themselves to make it worthwhile. I mean, then you hit frustration, because there are people like that, and even people you love like that. So,
well,
what do you get with that?
It's very, with people you love and people like family, working with family or close friends, there's a whole different set of rules that you have to kind of start playing by. I don't know if that's where we're going. I probably shouldn't be talking about that right now.
Well, I'm gonna pop in really quick. I do think it's very layered, accepting money, because everybody is different. Everybody has their own, their own values and criteria of how they want to receive and how they want to give. And if for example, I've absolutely paid for help in multiple forms, and you're going to pay either way, whether it's with your time. Literally, if I've worked with any of you, we've paid with our time that we've spent together, and we worked and we talked about other things around that, and there is this balance. Or if I'm literally going for other professional services and I'm paying them because it's the expression of value. I value you. I will spend time with you. I value, I will give this to you. And especially when you have somebody who can keep you to the best of your allowing ability, keep you safe in that moment when you're going through some of these processes that can be extremely emotional, and you come out on the other side, you can't give them enough. You can't pay them enough, because the care that they provided, the affection and the sincerity and the healing, which sometimes it might be a little overused, but it really is that release, that completion of processing. There's no way to express it beyond words, time, and money. And it's unfortunate because it still doesn't ever feel like enough when you have that balance back in your body, back in your mind, back in your heart. And I absolutely, I think it's very layered. I do see the Abraham Hicks unconditional component, but I also see the ability to receive, of which I think Fran had mentioned it before. I don't know if I want it, which is a great idea and a great concept for receiving. When I heard, I think it was with Tony Robbins tells this story where somebody went to pay for his lunch and he said, "No, I got it." And he goes, "Why are you going to rob me the joy of paying for this?" And that really is a joy. And if I give a compliment, I hope it is received by the person in the best way, the way that I'm offering it. It's not something insincere. And sometimes, and I do my best to be accepting of them. Even sometimes they, if somebody's like, "Oh, hey, you're awesome," like humbly accepting it. But there are other times where if you give them this compliment, you're giving them a gift, and you go, "No, it's just what I do." You're literally taking that gift and you're throwing it on the floor. And it's heartbreaking for the person expressing it, whether it's through money, whether it's through words, whatever it is, because it didn't land the way that you had intended. It didn't come across that way. So to be a receiver and a giver, and to have this balance and to really find that balance is definitely one that I've focused quite a bit on. So I completely understand all of you and where you are right now.
And that brings up listening and hearing people giving you compliments and thanks and acknowledging it. It's so easy just to blow it off when that's robbing them of their gift as well.
Mm-hmm.
Actually hearing and acknowledging people saying kind things to you and appreciating it and letting them know you appreciate it. I'm really bad at that.
You're getting better and better at it.
And that little reframe that you implied, Lenora, as well. I almost said a different name. That thing, there's that little thing, because I learned that a while ago as well, where someone gives you a compliment, and whether it's self-esteem or whatever, and part of you just kind of wants to go, "Oh no, it's nothing," but you're inherently kind of saying your opinion isn't true, or it's not right by doing that. And so I learned to I really focus and make sure that I just said, "Oh, you're welcome," or something like that, or "My pleasure," or something like that. So it was, I guess, it's echoing, it's matching it's matching what they gave you and giving that back at that same level, instead of minimizing it and kind of going, again, this presupposition of, "I don't think what you're saying is true." Because they on some level could take that in.
Yeah. There was one that I had seen the other day, thank you, Instagram, and this person had done a task for somebody, and rather than saying, "Oh, no problem, it's no big deal," they had said, "You're welcome. I'm sure you do the same for me." And it was such a nice match. Like, I've never thought that. Like, usually I'm like, "Yeah, no problem, whatever. It was no big deal." But that was such a beautiful way of really receiving it, and then also matching it, saying like, "Hey, thank you. I have no doubt that you'd have my back too. You do the same." I thought that was really, really done beautifully when it was said. Anybody else popping in? I didn't know if somebody was holding back. Fran, what was the other thing that you wanted to talk about?
Well, yeah, it kind of got put down the list. I wanted to wanted to throw open everybody's experiences of synthesizing various different sorts of processes that they've learned over the years, because I've been having a lot of fun with mixing up one technique with another and just sort of blending them in a different way, and finding that that's been extremely powerful. So does anybody else do that? What's your experience of it?
Anybody jump on in?
Mine's real quick, so I'm going to jump in. Learn principles, not techniques.
That. What he said. Well, him up there, I can't, like, my screen's here, but my camera's there. It's kind of weird. Here, if I point like there, I'm actually pointing at Aaron's head. But somehow it looks like I'm pointing at Fran on my screen.
On my screen, pointing at Aaron, it's all right.
Oh, that's all right then.
We're in a different order.
Well, we're in the southern hemisphere and he's in the northern hemisphere.
There you go. We should just turn clockwise or anti-clockwise or something.
So our Zoom is upside down to him.
There you go.
Can I just add? I think we were ahead of everyone.
That too.
Yeah, don't try and make sense out of it, Francine. The pixels go down the plug hole in the opposite direction here.
And I think also the synthesizing, you're talking about principles. An awful lot of it's listening to your gut with what's going on. And again, I'm more and more blown away, which we all seem to be moving more and more toward getting the client to create their own solution, therapy or whatever. And I'm just blown away every time by how powerful that is as well. That, learning the techniques is one thing, but actually utilizing them in an appropriate or inspired way, something else again.
That was beautiful.
I think when it comes to like making shit up, MSU as we've been calling it, or synthesizing multiple techniques, and it works best when you didn't plan it, right? Like, because I remember, so I was in a class once working with someone learning regression. Like, we'd learned some of the stuff, and a lot of people here, you guys know what magic frame is. I'm not going to explain what magic frame is. Someone else can if they want afterwards. But we'd learned magic frame, and then we'd now moved on to the more advanced part of the course, and we were learning regression. And I was doing a happy regression with my practice buddy, and they went back to a certain point in their life where they were having fun and everything was good and and then it was time to come back, and they had this sudden like abreaction, like, oh no, my father is alive in this picture, and if I come back I'm going to lose him all over again. And just tears start coming out, like, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm like 3 days into my first ever training in hypnosis and this is happening, right? But I just took a deep breath and went, okay, what do I know? I know magic frame. So let's do magic frame. But instead of writing down the lessons and stuff, we put a golden, shiny, beautiful frame, and in golden ink, we wrote all the things we love about Dad. And all the things, do you know what I mean? We did that. And then I had to put it, instead of throw it behind and, with the nail gun, put it somewhere where you can access it easily whenever you need to. And so she had this like frame with like this happy image of in the past with all these things that they loved about their dad, and that they were coming back feeling lucky that they were one of the few lucky people in the world who was able to meet this man before he'd passed on, and many others hadn't. And like, you had no idea. It's just it's an adaptation of something you learned, right? So whether it's taking a bit of this and a bit of that and kind of, or whether it's taking something you learned and kind of using it in an upside down kind of way, like, it works best when you don't plan it, when like you're thrown in the situation and you're like, okay, how am I going to get out of this one? I'll just do that. And it just comes from your unconscious mind. You're like, okay, I'm just going to do this. And then afterwards you're like, hey, that worked. That was awesome. So
That's an awesome story, Elijah.
That
was the first time I heard that one.
Yeah, I've never told that story because you kind of respect the privacy of the other person.
That's so good. That's so brilliant. I usually Fran, when you had asked that question, what do you do? I kind of just go with the flow to the best of my ability, and I think, how can I help? How can I help? What does it feel like they need? I really try to feel into them and what they're looking, what listening to them, but also feeling what they're reaching for. What is that void that they want filled? So I would say the principles. That's a good one. Learn principles. Yeah, go ahead, Francine. I did see your hand before. Sorry about that.
No worries. What I've noticed as well is that I would plan actually for sessions when I do them on people, but it never goes according to plan. It's just, I think it's just for me to feel secure that I have planned what we're going to do. But then once the person is here, however, I've noticed that often the Reiki will come in. I've done different modalities of Reiki over the years, and I found that often I use different types of, but it just comes automatically. I don't actually think about it because I'm in the moment. I just follow the flow, if that makes sense. And sometimes it's really scary, really scary.
I feel like it's scary in like we don't know where this is going to go, but still knowing the outcome, that ultimately you're there and they're safe. And the fact that, even though I think, at least for me, being able to let them know ahead of time that they'll be safe, that I can't hurt them, they can't hurt me. And then also still seeing them in that moment, helping to keep them safe and bring them back to that, even if there's not complete resolve, but bring them back to safety.
Right. Yeah. Your intention is to not stop until they're either somewhere safe or it's been resolved.
Yeah.
Ideally been resolved, but if not, at the very least, they're somewhere safe.
Yes.
And that they feel that it's okay and good for now, and we can maybe pick it up later again.
Well said.
And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so important to have a pre-set up, especially when you're working over Zoom or whatever, that you never know if the internet's going to go down on you in the middle of a big abreaction or whatever. So, my first conversation is to get them understanding. If Zoom goes down and we're here, this is what you do. If you're doing okay, keep going. And if not, again, focus on the breath, come back to, let the feelings fade. And once that's thoroughly installed, and people who are really nervous, I find that if I actually fractionate, woo, and put them in and out of trance and get them to feel like they're bringing themselves in and out of trance, that they feel a lot more confident as well. That's another thing that with particularly people who are afraid of hypnosis, they sometimes feel good if they can actually feel like they're in control. Being a control freak, I know that it's important to feel like you're in control.
Man, you really didn't know you're a control freak until recently? I've known for years.
I only just found out. I only just realized.
I've known for years.
I'm sure you have, and I'm sure everybody else has known for years, but I didn't.
But we just find it endearing, you know.
Okay. Well, good thing about control freaks is they can get things done sometimes.
Sometimes. I love the caveat at the end. Sometimes. Fran, what was I gonna? You raised such a great point there. Letting people know they're in control. Do you explain how do you explain hypnosis to somebody? There you go.
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. Well,
you're welcome to ask questions.
First of all, I do try and explain that we're all in hypnosis all the time in one form or another, but most people don't get that. That's not what they're afraid of. They're afraid that you're going to take control of their mind and make them think and do and feel things that they didn't want to. And you actually have to try and persuade them that that's, well, not just not going to happen with you, but maybe extend the myth that it's not possible. But, you know, we've been in the game enough to know that you can change people's minds and perspectives if you're really good.
Listen, you've got to be careful saying things like that here.
Yeah, that's right. It comes out as a challenge to you guys.
Can you make someone do something against their will that they don't want to do? Let's stick with no.
Yes.
Let's stick with no. Right? Okay.
It's like the Kenrick Cleveland
if you want to
part
get
of him is coming out.
If you want to get technical, I would say you can't make someone do something they don't want to do. However, you could change what they want. And so by proxy, if you did it in multiple steps, technically you could. But
are the knots coming out?
No, well, think about it. Think about it. You can't make someone do something they don't want to do. True or false?
It's true because they'll come out.
You can't make someone do something they don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
However,
it's against the code of ethics.
You can change the thing that they want. So they might, after you do that, they might no longer.
You just revealed the loophole.
I don't. What is it?
David I don't make the weather. I just report it.
Listen, I don't make the rules. I just abuse them. Okay. No, I'm joking. I don't make the rules. I just report them. That's what David used to say, right? I just think that you can't make someone do something against their will. True. The caveat to that is most people don't have a will, so you could do pretty much anything.
And there you have it.
Right, but that doesn't mean. Listen, regardless of how scary what I or Fran is saying sounds, one thing remains true. No matter how deep you go into trance, no matter how deep you go into the state of suggestibility or whatever, you will never lose the ability to refuse something that is said to you. You always have that option.
That's very
good. So if you decide that this is not for me, and you just open your eyes and you crack on, that's it. You crack on with life. Yeah, that's it. It's over. So it's not possible for someone to like mind control you. That's not. Listen, my second ever training that I did back in 2016 with David Snyder, right? He went around the room like he does. For those of you who've been in a David Snyder training will know that at the start of the training, he goes around the room. What do you want to get out of this training? What do you want to get out of this training? What do you want to get? And he writes it all down and he makes sure that everybody gets what they want, right? Which is an awesome way to do a training. Okay. He came to this young guy in the back of the room and said, what do you want to get out of this training? And the guy said, I want to make people do what I want. And David just looked at him and said, get a gun. It works every time. You put the gun in someone's face, they'll do exactly what you want.
I did not think that's where you were going with the story.
Right? David then turns to the whole class and says, listen, that's not what we do. We are not here to make people do what we want. We are here to help people to understand that the way to get what they want is by following what we're showing them, right? So it's not so much about getting them to do what we want, it's more about getting them to want to do what we want, right?
Love the linguistic game here.
And so you can use language to transcend itself. Don't worry.
You can.
Language, listen, language, you might enjoy this one. I'm going to have to go off on a tangent.
Hold on one
Language
sec.
is
Wait, hold on.
always-
Wait, Fran had something to say. I'm sorry. Hold on. Hold your squirrel.
I was asked a question and I've got a tenth of the way through the response. And everybody else is getting enthusiastic, which is great. But I mean, I like to show people that they are in control. And it's been demonstrated multiple times that if people are asked to do what violates their codes, they will automatically come back to full awakening consciousness and say, no, get not it. I'm not going to do that. If anybody does that as an experiment, so you can't actually be made to do, like Elijah was saying, what you don't want. However, I totally agree with Elijah. You can be encouraged to change your mind and your thoughts and values. But in the situations that you asked me the question, Lenora, I get them to go into altered state and count themselves out so that they can feel, okay, this is what it's like to be in an altered state, and this is how I get out of it. And then they feel confident to go deeper. And in the meantime, you're fractionating them like crazy. So every time you do that, they're just going deeper and relaxing more. And so
That's
you're getting the
fantastic.
cooperation.
That's
and
awesome.
they're confident. So, that's one of the things that I like to do, particularly with nervous people.
Mm-hmm.
Or we don't even do a formal induction. And I mean, we've done it enough now that you don't need a formal induction. You just talk, and they're going to be in an altered state very quickly, regardless.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Fran. Elijah, did you have your scroll? You got 3 minutes. Oh, I'm the ninja. People can't see the chat. All right. Does anybody else have any question or anything they want to add? Thank you all so much for showing up and for participating and sharing all your thoughts and your awesome energy. So thank you so very much. Anybody? We're good. Elijah, now I don't know if you're coming back or not. It's very confusing to me.
Yeah, 3 minutes not long enough. We'll have to
All
wait.
right.
You'll have to tune in next week.
There you
watching.
go. What a great
Tune in next
hug.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yes, thank you. Oh, see, I forgot that at the beginning. I was too busy repeating my name. But yes, definitely like, comment, subscribe. Find us here every Tuesday, except the Triple T link will be the original Triple T link. And that is all. Thank you guys so much. You're awesome. Thank you. All right. Stay well.